The Force Field is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Listen to other great tech podcasts at www.techpodcasts.com.
From Charlotte, North Carolina, for IT service providers, it's The Force Field with Rick Savoya. And now, here is your host, Rick Savoya.
Greetings, providers. Welcome to the unofficial podcast for IT service providers, The Force Field. I am your host, Rick Savoya, and this is the show that discusses the topics and issues related to the business of tech. Today we'll talk with an IT professional who will tell us about some of the ways techs can be scammed by their own customers. He'll tell us what to watch out for and discuss ways to protect yourself and your business from getting ripped off. Our comment line is open to all listeners 24/7 at 407-278-5698. That's 407-278-5698. Or you can call in via Skype at Savoya Computer if you'd like to record a comment for the show. The Force Field is advertiser supported, so you can hear it free. You can help support this episode of The Force Field by checking out our sponsors at www.theforcefield.net. Thanks for supporting our advertisers, because you help to keep the podcast going and the Force Field online. I really appreciate your support. The IT industry is rife with fraudulent activity and outright scams. We often hear stories online and in the media about unscrupulous techs who rip off customers with dishonest deals, but there's another side to this coin that is hardly mentioned at all, but also quite prevalent and just as bad. We're talking about customers who rip off techs. This is a problem, and many techs have either been seriously affected or are practically put out of business from customers who have been less than honest or outright cheats. Even if it was unintentional or due to customer error, at the end of the day, the tech is still liable and is often left holding the empty bag. Bryce Whitty is well aware of the risks imposed on techs in business today. Bryce is an IT professional and owner of TechNibble.com, a popular website and forum for IT professionals and business owners. From fake checks to fraudulent claims, he has dealt with his share of cheating customers and beguiling buyers, and is always on alert for scams against techs. Today we'll talk with Bryce and discuss the risks of getting ripped off in your business. We'll learn about some of the most common scams perpetrated against IT techs, talk about some of the red flags to watch out for when dealing with questionable customers, and swap our own personal experiences with customers who try to take advantage of us, as we talk about customers who scam. And we're speaking with Bryce Whitty. Hi, Bryce. Welcome back to the Force Field.
All right, good to be back.
It's great to have you back. It's been a while. It's been a year or two since we've had you on the show, but it's good to have you back here. How are things your way?
Been good. Been keeping busy, traveling around a lot, working on some projects.
Well, before we get started into the discussion, go ahead and tell those who are not familiar or who haven't heard you on the show before a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm an Australian computer technician, and I run a large website called TechNibble.com, which is a website designed, for computer technicians. Not so much for the technical side, but more on the business side. So how to get your first client, how to deal with a bad client, that sort of thing.
And you started TechNibble back 2006. It was just about the same time that I started the Force Field, as a matter of fact, as I recalled. You started, it was around the autumn of 2006, I believe?
Yeah, it sounds about right. I think it was about 2006.
I've watched it grow and become a pretty large forum and a nice site altogether.
Oh, thank you. And I also brought on quite a few other writers, so it's not just sort of my stories and my advice. It also extends to other people that are doing other things within the computer world that I'm not doing, but they are, and it's got quite a broad spectrum of knowledge. And I mean, the forums themselves. Then you've got thousands of the knowledge of thousands of other people as well. So there's a lot of stuff going up on there that I'm seeing for the first time myself, just because it's all contributed by others. I enjoy it as a reader, even though I am like the owner.
Well, it's a great site, and I recommend it to everyone. If for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's www.technibble.com. Well, Bryce, you brought a couple of interesting topics in today, a couple of interesting things to talk about. You got something here that's really kind of a hot topic with techs these days, and something that we all really need to watch out for.
Basically, I want to talk about things that computer technicians should watch out in the computer repair world. Maybe save some of the newer guys potentially falling victim to a scam or maybe a bad client. Probably the first thing I'd want to talk about would actually be common scams that computer technicians should look out for. So usually you see on TV all the scams that dodgy computer technicians are pulling on clients, but this one's actually about common scams that are used against computer technicians.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot, and you see that on the internet a lot, people talking about how unscrupulous or less than honorable technicians have done them wrong, but you really don't hear much about the other side. There's another side of this coin. It happens both ways, and I think it's definitely something we really need to talk about and bring out into the open, because a lot of people are just not aware of what the techs have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have your shields up constantly. Just got to read the client and try to get a feel and trust your gut with whether you think they're trying to scam you or not. I mean, it does happen a lot. There's just so many. I don't know whether they're just bad people or they're just cheap, and I'm not too sure why a lot of people do it. But they happen.
Do they fall into specific categories, or do they take the form of a lot of different types of scams? Some of them that are maybe difficult to really foresee.
Well, there's the two main categories. One of the ones that I see probably the most is called a fake check scam. And I think it's also known as an advance payment fraud, I think was the proper term for it. But it's basically when a scam will email you about the purchase of some hardware, usually a large amount as well. So they might ask for 8 laptops, for example, and since you're a smart person, you're obviously not going to send them 8 laptops before a check clears.
Yeah, we certainly hope not.
No, yeah, of course not. But what the scammer does is they send a fake check that is more than the amount that you originally quoted. So let's say I charged for 8 $1,000 laptops, and they'll send you, say, $9,000 or $10,000 in the check. And they will email you a bit later and say, oops, I accidentally sent you too much. Can you send me back the difference? And so some people will either send a check back or PayPal it back or whatever means they need to, the difference. But what ends up happening is the check ends up being fake. So it eventually, after 10 days or whatever, will bounce. And basically you sent them, $1,000 or $2,000 for free. The scam was never actually after the hardware. They were after the difference on the fake check, and that's basically how they get you.
Now, there's a variation on this that has to do with money orders, too. They can send out money orders instead of a check. I've seen that happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they do that scam, and it's not even specific to the computer repair industry. They'll alter it little bits and pieces, but generally the core is still the same thing. They're trying to get you to send money back before the money clears, and the trigger is that they sent you more than what you asked for. Most technicians that will come across this usually say they post ads on Craigslist. So you have, say, Nigerians and stuff scanning through all the Craigslist and looking for people to get. I actually have a sample of an email that they sent to one of the technicians on TechNibble. It's very iconic of sort of what what you'll see if someone was trying about it. So I'll read it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the email, it starts, it goes, "Hello, how are you going? My name is name, and I'm from location, and I work in location." So it's usually never Nigeria or something. It'll be something fairly Western. And I'm going to say this with spelling mistakes as well.
It's okay.
I read your description, and I am interested in your services. I just brought some computers, and they are laptops, Pentium 4 Dell computer. So it shows that English isn't their first language.
Yeah. That's a tip-off right there.
I want you to install software such as Microsoft Office and antivirus. Clear inner and outer computer components, update software and current status. Get back to me with total cost for the services for 8 computer, including the shipping, because I have a shipper that will come with computers and the necessary softwares to you. I await your urgent response so that I can put arrangements in order," and then the name of the person. And that's very iconic. I mean, they always ask for lots of computers for some reason. I guess so they can accidentally give you more money. But it's usually lots of computers. They usually want you to do something with them. So, install Office or antivirus or clean them or something like that. And usually they want an urgent response because I guess it gives you less time to think about it, and you sort of like, oh, gee, I better get back to it quickly, and not really think about what's going on here.
And I take it your response should be, right. But how often do techs really fall for this?
I think with this sort of thing, it's a numbers game. I'm sure, 9 times out of 10, it's just, oh geez, even higher numbers, 19 out of 20 or something. Everyone just says, yeah, right, whatever. But they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, Bryce. People think, well, these guys can't possibly think I would fall for this. Who would? With all the spelling errors, the grammatical mistakes, all the things that are red flags right away, that this can't be legit. But you hit the nail on the head. If there wasn't the chance, or if there wasn't any kind of return on the investment at all, they wouldn't be doing this. So obviously somebody's falling for it.
That's it. There's another scam that I see a fair bit is the missing hardware scam. And that's basically when they bring a computer in and they say that it's running slow even though it's got a high amount of RAM. We'll just say, 16 gig, which and it shouldn't be since it has 16 gig, and they keep emphasizing that it may have a decent amount of RAM in it. Mm-hmm. And they may bring it in not working, or anyway, they bring it in and you do the work and you fix it, but then they say, oh, you stole my RAM. It's only got a gig of RAM in there. What are you doing? And you say, well, I didn't touch it. That's what it is. And say, oh well, you stole my RAM, and I'm going to say everything bad about you to the entire community, and unless you give me my RAM back, and blah 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 blah. And basically, some computer technicians will replace the part just to, keep them quiet and make them go away. But that's another common scam that happens, is saying it's higher spec than it is, and then accusing the tech of stealing it.
Now, I can imagine there's surely a good way to counteract that sort of a scam, or a good countermeasure for it. What do you suggest that techs do in a situation like that?
Well, the first thing is just simply awareness, knowing that this sort of scam exists. But the other thing would probably be to have systems in place that either for you or your employees to follow. So basically have like a check-in form or something that identifies the client, says what the specs of the computer are. I mean, as much as you can, depending on the condition of it. If it's completely dead and won't even boot, then it may take a little bit too long to crack it open and identify every part, but the best you can. And it's a good idea to sort of collect any passwords and stuff at this point. Yeah, but so basically once you have the specs on a piece of paper, they sign it when they leave, they come back, and you can say, well, it said it only had a gig of RAM in there, so it sort of doesn't matter what you say, it's written there and you signed it, so that's what it came with.
One of the things I used to do when they'd bring in computers into my shop is I would have them stay there and go over the situation with them and take a look, give it a once over, and write down key things and what basically was in the machine. Kind of open it up, take a look at it if it needed to be opened up. If it's a software issue, I generally didn't worry about that too much, but I would often check if it was on, boot it up and see what the issue was while they were there, so I could just sort of verify that what they were giving me was actually what they claimed it was.
Yeah, especially when they're leaving it with you unattended, sometimes it's not even entirely malicious. Sometimes, like they say, "Oh, I left my charger with you," and give it back, and you're like, "Well, I was never given the charger. I used my in-shop charger." But they may be completely wrong, but and they may think you're malicious. But sometimes they aren't even being scammers. They just simply didn't give it to you. So having a form just saying, "Okay, you brought in the charger and the mouse and a case and some CDs," or something like that, it goes a long way to stop those sort of arguments.
Yeah, I've had that sort of thing happen to me before, but it's usually with something simple like a power cord or something. In a case like that, I usually don't worry about it because I've got a whole box of power cords that I'm just looking to get rid of.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Mine absolutely breed in my cupboard, I'm sure. I've never ever bought a normal kettle cable, but for some reason I end up with 20 plus. Mm-hmm. They're breeding, I think.
Now, what are some of the other things that you run into that are red flags to watch for?
Well, generally, if something feels wrong, I can mention more very specific scams. I've mentioned sort of probably the two most common ones you've run into, but there's new variants and new sorts of things happening all the time. The best thing is just sort of trust your gut. There's been a few times where I'm just like, no, maybe not. Like I've had people attempt to bring in computers that I believe to be stolen. They'd say, "I got this. It's got no charger. It's got no CDs. And they say, I was given it by my brother," or something like that. And it's just like, I don't believe this one. They don't know anything about it. It's like, "Oh, so what's the password on it?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know what the password. In fact, I want you to remove the password." And it's just like, maybe not.
Yeah.
You can just nicely make them go away. I'll say, I don't have the skills to remove this password, for example. And even though you can quite easily do something like that with a tool like Conboot or something like that, just sometimes lie and just say, "Yeah, don't know how to do this one," and just send them on their way.
Yeah, that definitely becomes a liability issue real quick, especially if you have a couple that's going through a divorce and one of them grabs the computer and you definitely don't want to be in the middle of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've had that sort of one as well. People wanting me to remove passwords, that sort of stuff, install keyloggers, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, no, leave that one. It's because, if they ever come to court and they need to use the computer as evidence, guess who's going to go in with them?
Yep. Yeah.
And say, "Well, this computer guy said." It's like,
that can get messy really quick. I don't know if you run into this in Australia, but in the States here, and this has been going on for a long time, there's a common scam where one of the ones that we run into here are phone calls through a relay chat. We have a relay chat system here for the deaf, for those who can't really hear very well and or can't hear at all, and what they do is they call up through a phone relay service and say that, "Well, I need some computer assistance," or "I want to make a purchase." The most common one is, "I want to make a purchase for a large amount of maybe RAM or a large number of hard drives," or something like that. And because you can't hear their voice, and they're going through a relay service where what they're doing is they're typing on a computer somewhere, and the person on the phone, the operator, or the relay chat operator, is reading it to you verbatim, and then you respond to that operator, and that operator types it back in to the person on the other end. And it's very common because what they'll do is they'll try to make purchases. for large amounts, and then say, well, they're going to send you, a check or whatever, it's or wire transfer or whatever it is, and you wind up getting billed for all your hardware. You wind up shipping off to a location that's often maybe remote or somewhere, maybe the doorstep of some rural home where they can come by and pick it up before the owner of the house gets wind that there's something on their doorstep, that sort of thing. I don't know if you run into that there, but it's been a common scam here.
Okay, I haven't seen it personally myself. We do have those services, but I haven't seen that one myself. Another red flag I just thought of is Western Union. If Western Union is involved at all for payment, then I'd probably pull the pin on that one. Actually, when I lived in London for a year and a half, and when I was looking for an apartment, place looked good. I walked over there, I checked it out, and they said, "Oh, but since I'm not in the country, you're gonna have to send payment via Western Union." And I'm just like, "Oh no!" Then that's another one where, and they said that it was going to Nigeria, and once Western Union and Nigeria were brought up, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to touch that one either.
Well, yeah, we get a lot of that here too. That's definitely one. If it says Western Union, run away.
Yeah,
run away.
Yeah.
All the scams that you mentioned bear watching, but I found out when I had my store, I was scammed once in my store.
What happened?
Well, I had a gentleman come in who claimed he was running a big restaurant. I think it was a sports bar or something, as I recall. And he needed to purchase 3 or 4 brand new computers. I was going to build some computers for him. I had a couple that were already done and that were actually rebuilds, and he wanted to buy those. And then he wanted a couple of new ones, so I put those together for him. And he gave me a down payment on half of it, half now and then half on delivery. And he wrote me a check. And the check seemed to clear at first. But by the time I had made the delivery and he'd written the second check and he was gone, it turns out that he actually printed out these checks. But they were very good forgeries.
Yeah.
And what I did something a little different. I was very proactive about it because I was so upset because he took me for about $1,500. I didn't take that lying down. I was very upset about it. So I went on the internet. I had looked up this guy. I had found his criminal record because he'd done this before. He was actually on probation for doing it to someone else a couple of years earlier. And he was supposed to have a probation officer assigned to him. And apparently that probation officer wasn't doing her job because he was on the loose. And when he had scammed me, when I realized it was a scam, I had actually called up a couple of my local distributors to give them a heads up. And one of the guys that I called, I told him about this guy and said, "Watch out." And the guy said, wait. He's just walking out the door right now, and I got a check in my hand. I said, "You better go get him." They missed him, but what I did do was I got a hold of the police, filed a police report, and they had him caught within about 24, 48 hours. And it's a long story. One of these days I'll tell the whole story on the show. I'm not going to go into it now. But when the police came in to do the initial interview with me to try to track this guy down, they were prepared to sit down. They brought on a laptop. They were prepared to sit down for an hour or so and get all of my information so they could locate this guy. And I handed them about 20 pages of paper that I had already done a full, thorough search on the web on this guy and found all kinds of stuff that they didn't even have. And I just handed the stack to him. I said, "Here it is. Go get him." And the cops on the case called me back later and said, "You know what? You saved us a couple of days' worth of work." Because we had all the information. I had information on this guy that they couldn't. He says, "How did you get all this stuff?" I said, I just looked it up on the internet.
Their Google foo is weak, it sounds like. It sounds like you're a bit better at Googling than they are.
Well, be that as it may, I don't recommend that everybody go out and do this because you never know how dangerous some of these people could be.
That's true.
But I will say that if you do get scammed, What are some of the things that they can do? What's a recourse that techs have in case they do become a victim to this?
A recourse. Some there's not much you can do. I mean, you can try and talk to the bank and try and get some money back. But generally, with these scams, they usually shut down the accounts pretty quick or get it out or whatever. So a lot of the time, unfortunately, it's just a lesson learned hard. And just be glad that you only punished that much. Because that's just the nature of some scams. I mean, some insurance will cover. Well, I'm not too sure if insurance will cover that.
It didn't for me. I thought mine did, and that's another great thing you brought up. I thought my insurance was going to cover my loss, and they wouldn't do it on a technicality because technically he went out the door with the equipment. I let him go out the door with the equipment, so technically I allowed it to happen. So they wouldn't reimburse me for any of that. And I was out. Now, they never recovered the equipment that he stole from me, but what he supposedly purchased. And, of course, since the checks came back fraudulent, I was out the money, too. So I was out about $3,000.
Ouch, yeah, that one hurt.
Yeah, it definitely did. And the end of the month, too. But, so, yeah, in a case like that, I would suggest that techs do their due diligence first of all and always be alert. But if it does happen, whatever you do, you can't sit around and wait for something to happen. You have to do it quick. Report it quickly. Report it right away. Maybe nothing will come out of it, but at least if you report it right away, the sooner that you can get it reported, the better chance there is that you might get some result from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if technicians are never a victim of a scam as well, you're probably going to make a mistake at some point. And so another thing that technicians should have is insurance. It's a bit of a tough act to follow when you just said your insurance didn't cover it, but it is good to have anyway.
I'll tell you what, we can cover that in the next episode of The Force Field. We can pick it up right there. Is this a good place to do it?
Yep, yeah, sure.
Okay, well, we're running out of time for now, Bryce. When we come back in the next episode of The Force Field, we'll continue the discussion with Bryce, and we'll talk about how you can cover yourself, insurance-wise and otherwise, in the next episode of The Force Field. In our next episode, we'll continue our discussion with Bryce and learn how to protect ourselves from liability. We'll talk about the different types of insurance available to techs in the field, some of the potential liabilities that can quickly put a tech in the IT business out of business, and how you can limit and protect yourself and your business from such potential liabilities and risks. Have you ever been ripped off by a customer? Has anyone tried to scam you or your business? Have you heard about a new scam or one that we didn't talk about on the show today? Share it with us in the Force Field. Call 407-278-5698 and tell us about it in a voice message or email your comments to comments@theforcefield.net. Send in your comments and feedback via email to comments@theforcefield.net, post them in our forums at theforcefield.net/forums, or tweet them to me on Twitter @theforcefield. And I'll make sure they get on the show. If you'd like to hear the latest episodes of The Force Field on demand as soon as they arrive, all you need to do is subscribe. It's free. You can subscribe to the Force Field podcast on our website at theforcefield.net or through iTunes, Blueberry.com, and the Tech Podcast Network on your PC, Mac, tablet, or mobile phone. You can also listen to The Force Field on your Roku, Viaway, or stream it on Stitcher. Well, folks, our time is up. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, my kids for allowing me to do this without interruptions, and my wife for just putting up with me. If you'd like to comment on the program, you can email me at comments@theforcefield.net or visit our website at www.theforcefield.net. Opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent theforcefield.net, Savoya Media, or advertisers. All music on the show is original and was written and performed by Brother Rincid and the Brand New Pygmies. The show is produced and distributed by Savoya Media. For The Force Field, I'm Rick Savoya. May the Force Field be with you.